Well, good morning, everyone, and good to be back with you. I'm on my own today. My man Matt's out, and he's traveling a little bit this week, so I'm going to try to carry the load for us and try to get us through this without boring you too much on my own. But last week when we were together, we talked a little bit at the end about time, right? We talked about the difference of chronos, the Greek word for chronological time, just as time rolls on, and kairos, that moment in time that's impactful and can change us and it requires us to take action. And the reason that was on my mind last week is my son Dante, who many of you have heard about, who is 17 and a junior in high school. He was on a kairos retreat last week, so he was gone from us for 3 nights and 4 days, and it was pretty painful when you send your 17-year-old son away, who we still see as a little boy, and although he's about 6 foot, 6'1", 235 pounds with facial hair, he's still our baby, and it was tough to let him go for a few nights. But he went on one of these Kairos retreats. And it was funny because we were at Mass as a family last Sunday. He was leaving Sunday afternoon. And at Mass, my wife reached over and like squeezed his knee. And he looked at her and she told him, she said, "I love you." And he said, "If you loved me, you wouldn't be forcing me to go on retreat." And she said, "It's because I love you that I'm forcing you to go on retreat." And he went and he came home Wednesday of last week, had a great time. And their phones were taken from them when they were on this retreat. So we didn't hear from him for a few days. But on his way back to school, when we were on our way to school to meet him and pick him up, he sent us a text and he said, "Thank you guys so much for making me go. I love you. I needed this. Thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone." And as I was reflecting on that text, I thought, wow, how cool. Well, first of all, how cool when you get a text from your kid other than "I need money," right? But it's so great when he texts and says, "Thank you for pushing me outside of my comfort zone. I needed this." And when you combine that with my wife's words of, "It is because I love you that I'm forcing you to go on this retreat," that how much does that sum up the pain in a lot of our lives, or the lack of production we're having in many areas of our lives? Because we get in these comfort zones, right? And we get in these comfort zones that just are easy. And for my son, he had to pack bags. He had to think about the prospect of being away from his phone for 3 days. That's a big one, right? He was going to be away from his girlfriend. He was going to be away from us. He was going to be away from the comforts of life, the easiness, the predictability, the just going through the motions of life that so many of us fall into. Lucky for my son, he has his mother, my wife Susie. Lucky for him, he has somebody that loves him enough to push him to be uncomfortable. Someone that loves him enough to challenge that comfort and say, "It is because I love you that I'm sending you." And, I would ask you guys this week, where are we? Are you the person that's in your comfort zone and is reluctant to do the hard work it takes to get out of the comfort zone? Because I can tell you, the 3 days for my son, he didn't sleep much. Right? He ate like what do you call it? Institutionalized food, basically. I'm sure he had those little green beans that we always call them institutional green beans. He didn't have the comforts he was used to, but he grew. He came home much better than he left. He came home more receptive to the people in his life, to relationships, to openness to others. He grew tremendously in those 3 to 4 days that he wouldn't have grown in staying here in the comfort zone. Like he grew because he went outside of that zone of normality. He did something different. And I would argue it was radical, right? It was a radical change. And then are you the person that needs to challenge someone you love? And that could be in your personal life, or right, it could be in your work life if you're a leader. You don't even need to be a leader of a person. You can just be a peer that sees somebody you care about not doing all the things they should be doing. Are you somebody who's in a position where you love another and you need to challenge them to become more? A great definition of love for me is to want the good for the other. Love is to want the good for the other. Doesn't necessarily mean like, we're in an intimate, loving relationship, but anybody we encounter, that we want good for, that's love. And what does that mean? That means we might have to speak the truth to them. And the truth is, where you are is not where you should be. Where you are is not your full potential. And where you are is not what you were created for. I always tell my kids, they usually don't like it, but I always tell my kids, you were created for greatness, not for mediocrity. Why, when we were created for greatness, do so many of us spend all of our time pursuing mediocrity? It's not what we were built for. It's not what we were created for. Us being here, you, who you are, is not an accident. You were intentionally created for greatness. Yet we spend most of our day pursuing mediocrity. We spend a lot of our days pursuing the easy path, right? So I'm asking you, are you in your comfort zone? By the way, I am. I'm guilty of this. I'm in my comfort zone right now. I need to do something radically different. I need to change the pattern because I know there's more. And I find in my life the patterns of when I'm in the comfort zone and I'm getting too comfortable in the comfort zone is when I know there's greatness ahead. There's going to be a change ahead because I'm going to radically change something I'm doing. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, right? But it's radical changes that are intentional. And it could be something as simple as getting up a half hour earlier. It could be something as simple as making more calls, being more effective in our prospecting, creating more intentional encounters with people that we know can lead us to business. Or is it going to be being more intentional in my life with my loved ones? And I think a lot of us have fallen into this comfort zone, and there's reasons for it. There's very good, legitimate reasons for it. If you haven't noticed, there's been a global pandemic going on. I think what is today? We're roughly 2 weeks away from the 2-year anniversary of 14 days to flatten the curve. Anybody remember that phrase? 14 days to flatten the curve. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of it. And there's some of us still walking around wearing masks, right? I mean, just yesterday they lifted the school mask mandate on schools here in where we are in Pittsburgh. They just lifted that mandate 2 years later. So this global pandemic has put many of us into new comfort zones. Are you in one of those comfort zones? And is it because of the pandemic? Here's a clue. If you're wearing sweatpants right now as you watch this, and you can't remember the last time you put on a belt, you might be in a comfort zone that's pandemic induced. And, I've jokingly told friends that I want to start drinking more. Why? Because it seems like everybody I talk to through this thing has said, oh, yeah, I'm drinking a lot more during the pandemic. You look at alcohol sales through the roof. Alcohol companies are setting records every quarter because of the comfort zone we've fallen into of not needing people, of not needing to go out, of staying in, of becoming more isolated, even if it's inside our family unit, which there's a lot of good to, right? If we're using that time well. But there's an isolation that we've gone into that's not that we weren't intended for. We're built for community. We're built to be with others. We're built to interact with others, to help others and be helped and be influenced by others in a positive way. So we have that. We have some of that comfort zone. Are you in a comfort zone with your activity at work? Right? Are you really present during meetings, Zoom and team meetings, or is it too easy to now just mute our screen and kind of do something over here on the side on a second screen that so many of us have? Is it easy to do that? Or are you really present? Are you really there loving the other person, minding their time, treating their time as a gift to you? I'm very guilty of that. Are you prospecting like you need to? Are you being honest with yourself about doing the activities you need to do to be successful? Are you being honest with yourself about valuing your employer's time? Because a salesperson, as a sales leader, the company's entrusted its future to you. And we don't always think of that. We think about it being our time. We think about it being our activity. But the reality is the organization you work for has entrusted the future of the business to you. Are we taking that with the seriousness it deserves? Are you lying to yourself about long sales cycles and long prospecting cycles? I interviewed a candidate this week, and for a client of ours, and he was telling me about how long it takes to get people through the funnel, and how we have to have good expectations when we hire new salespeople about how long it takes for them to be successful. And there's merit to that. I mean, you can't hire a new sales rep and expect them to be successful in 2 weeks. But when you're telling me that you're at your current role for 2 years and you've brought in two clients, and I'm asking myself, what would we get different? Right. So we know what our needs are. We know what the sales cycles are. We know how long it takes to transition from prospect to client. And you're giving me your past 2-year track record. I'm not setting you up for success by putting you in this new role. I would argue that person might be in a comfort zone. I told him that. I thought that was the most loving thing I could do for him in that moment, and told him that probably wouldn't be moving forward. But are we lying to ourselves? Because it's easy to be comfortable. And sometimes when we lie to ourselves about those fake activity or artificial activity limits, it makes us feel like we're busy. It makes us feel like we're moving forward versus making us accountable to the results. So be honest with yourself if you're there. Are you in a comfort zone in your spiritual life? I don't know. I don't know what your spiritual life looks like. I don't know how important that might be. But if it's something that's important to you, don't lie to yourself about it. If it's something that's important to you and you haven't prayed in, I don't know, a year, don't lie to yourself and say, oh, this is something that's important to me and here's where I stand. Be honest. Are you in a comfort zone that needs a jolt? Are you in a comfort zone in your relationships, right? In your marriage, your dating relationship, or whatever that looks like, your family? I don't know. Too often we just let time pass. We become complacent. We waste our time. I'm a Catholic. I went to confession one time. I don't know, about 6 months ago, out in New Jersey while I was traveling for business, and I encountered this fiery priest that wasn't afraid to challenge me. And I told him, "Oh, I confessed these sins." And he said, "You've lied." And he had this very deep foreign accent. I said, "What?" He said, "You did not confess to wasting time." I was like, "Oh." He said, "That's the greatest sin of all." He said, "Each second is a heartbeat. With every second, a heartbeat goes by." He said, "How many of those heartbeats have you wasted?" And it was one of those statements that just smacked me in the face and transformed my thought. Because, you think about the heart, boom, 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 boom. That's life-giving, right? That noise, that sound we associate with life-giving power. And how many of those boom, 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 boom have I wasted? I'm embarrassed to say how many they are. I'm embarrassed to say how much more FaceTime my phone might get than those who I love. How much more FaceTime do I give to that phone than I give to the people that are most important to me? How many heartbeats do I give to that phone? How many heartbeats do I give to TikTok or Instagram or or whatever it might be? How many heartbeats do I give to that which doesn't matter? And starve those that love me and starve those that I love from those heartbeats. So I don't know. Are you in a comfort zone? I am. I need a little bit of a radical change in some of the approach I take. So, my pledge today is I'm not going to waste any more heartbeats today. Right. I'm going to try to be. I will. We know I will. We know I'll fail, but I'm going to be mindful of where my heartbeats go. I want to be mindful of of what I let that life-giving power do, how I share that with others, how I let that dwell in me to become a little better, how I'm going to be honest with myself about where my time's going, and be honest with myself about the activities I need to do. So I'm going to work today to try to not waste those heartbeats. I ask you to reflect and ask, am I wasting any of my heartbeats today? Am I giving too much phone time, FaceTime to my phone, and not enough FaceTime to those that I love? Not enough FaceTime to those who I might not have talked to in a long time because of the pandemic, the comfort zone, whatever it might be. It just gets too easy for us to not do the things we need to do so that we can grow. So, will you be the person that challenges somebody this week in a very loving way, as my wife did with Dante, and say, "I love you, and that is why I'm going to help you become better"? Or are you going to be the person that's able to be open to some of those challenges, whether that challenge comes from you or another, Are you going to be open to the reality that I might need to do something different today so that I can be something better tomorrow, and be grateful for that opportunity? I hope you have a great week. I hope you're able to find what it is that's that tweak we need, that minor tweak we need, that incremental tweak to give us exponential growth. I hope you find that this week, and look forward to being back with you guys next week on Tuesday, and hear how it's going. So thanks again for your time. Good to be with you guys. Take care. God bless.